Just the way I worked, I think, shifted, and especially getting used to rolling up my sleeves and jumping into the trenches with people. So from an incident response standpoint, obviously that is the job that I have to do, as well as now my broader organization. Just when our systems fail us and when we're dealing with high priority incidents, it just seems less convenient when I know I'm called to duty. Probably because I've kind of worked through again kind of that worst case scenario environment.
Recently, I did a podcast on accessibility, and there's a lot of parallels between accessibility and security. From what I'm hearing you say, is a lot of people don't see an immediate ROI. A lot of people also think it can be a barrier. And so one of the things I wanted to ask you was about innovation and how, in your role for security, how would you best coach somebody on balancing innovation within the IT space and security? Because some of those things can also be at odds.
I'll tell you a little bit about the project where we have we're working to implement mobile application management. And as we roll out this new technology, and I'll sort of say innovative in terms of what we could do from a security posturing standpoint.
Sure.
So there are checkbox that we could check that could drastically change the user experience that our CHS employees are used to when they're working on mobile phones or Droid kind of iOS device platforms. And we have had to kind of roll back from what I would consider to be sort of like the high security posture, really just to be listening to our employees in terms of, we say crawl, walk, run, and I'm trying to get away from that slogan.
A lot of people use it. It works. I mean, people understand it.
Stepping stones, right? So let's take like one step forward and have it be a more positive change than, trying to sprint right out of the gates. And so I love innovation, and I try to foster innovative thought process and design thinking, as we talked about as a leadership team last week, but really supporting that in a challenging, resource-constrained environment that we are in at CHS, especially in the IT organization where we're serving, 11,000 employees with, about 220 people.
Right.
And so I would say we try to allow for some time to be innovative, but then also really set guiding principles for what we're trying to achieve. So whether that be rolling out a new technology in order to meet some better security posture, at the end of the day, recognize that we need to account for voice of customer from our employees and make sure that they are able to take that step.
Let's say I just want to pose a scenario for you. What advice, if I was a new employee jumping into either your organization or another organization in a security role where maybe it wasn't so defined previously, what is some of the things that you would coach somebody on how to start making an impact within an organization as a new person in a security role?
I feel like even though I've been there for less than 2 years, I've been able to have my own learnings. So kind of applying what I had heard from my leader was to listen, to ask questions and to listen. I'm a solutioner. I'm a problem solver. And rather than trying to jump into, the solution or the rule, as we probably leverage in the security world, kind of like the black and white typical security view, understand our audience a little bit better, and just to be patient with the fact that we need to understand our employee base is very different than maybe a tech company per se. And so our employees' bandwidth and just ability to progress or move or shift, change, advance, innovate whatever word you want to use, just to allow for the time to ask questions and understand where they're coming from so that you can better adapt, tell the story, help them understand why we're doing the things we're doing. And I think many people in IT are problem solvers and solutioners. And so we typically will say, all right, we want to implement this technology, go, without really thinking through how that's going to feel to the person on the receiving end. And then also framing up why we're doing the things we're doing, and talking through that from a why this is important, why we're changing. But I think that mindset is it's kind of rare in the security field because, again, we're in high pressure stakes, right?
Yep.
Everybody wants to help secure our environment, but again, we've got to do it the right way, and we've got to do it by partnering versus complying, I guess I'll say.
Sure. Well, you think about there's a group at NASA that just looks for asteroids that are coming towards the planet, right? And you're kind of in that role. You're hoping you don't find anything, right? But you're forever vigilant, and I think that takes not only a certain amount of experience, but like you had mentioned, you're a problem solver. I think it takes a certain kind of character to not only to be good at it, but to find value in it, right? Like you had mentioned coming home and feeling like you won the lottery, right? That's got to be a great feeling. So how do you best stay aligned with other peers in other areas of the business? Is it one-on-ones? Is it presentations? How are you best staying aligned, making sure, like you had mentioned, about listening, but also being heard? How have you found the best way to stay aligned across the organization?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I don't know if I have a best method, because similarly to leading people, everybody's going to be a little different, right? So, and there's some people, obviously, I can have some in-person, face-to-face meetings with. And so that's a really important question that I'm still, I think, trying to solve at CHS, because we do have pockets where people just work differently. We've got remote locations that can't use Skype because they've got some network bandwidth constraints, right? So sometimes it's as easy as picking up the phone and just kind of asking people, what they do for CHS, how they operate, and then trying to solve whatever security or technology challenge we have in front of us. But I have an amazing peer group in an IT leadership team, and I have peers who support the various business units at CHS. And so I would say that I try to leverage them as much as possible to understand kind of the use of technology within that particular business unit, how they use technology. If I am going to meet with a senior leader in a business unit, trying to get some context from my peer prior to doing that in the right way, or I come from a place of maybe understanding a little bit who they are, maybe how they operate, what they think of, what's important to them, so that I can steer my conversation in that way. But I have really enjoyed staff, like I would call them senior leaders, inviting me into their staff meetings.
That's great.
Because it helps facilitates conversations within that peer group around how they view security and technology, what are challenges or barriers for them, and let's have a discussion versus me just sort of pontificating about what we need to achieve from a security perspective.
Sure. Well, and I'm glad you mentioned that being a part of, executive meetings and having a seat at that table. So, you can make sure you're in alignment with where the vision of the organization is. So you're steering things in the right way. I think that's really important. I coach a lot of people around fighting for that ability, because I think, again, making sure that you are in that position so you can be seen as not only a person who has that title and that role, but they can see that you have a passion for fixing these problems. You have a passion for keeping people aware of the importance of this, but not at the sake of burying everything else. Because I think, like you mentioned, I've also worked with people in security before that are very hardliners. That they have their script, they have their check boxes, and that's it. If you were talking with somebody in the security field that was more in that check boxes realm, how would you coach them, or how would you explain the benefits of being more flexible, even in this security environment that really is hard to be flexible in?
Yeah. I think of it in terms of a I don't know, like a rubber band, right? Like if we're just going to snap out at people or force them to stretch in a particular way, it's just going to like snap back in our face. I am lucky that I have an amazing team of people that I have either hired or have been at CHS that believe in that philosophy of partnering. But at Target, we obviously had a much bigger security organization. And I think that obviously I could help to influence people in the way they work just by demonstrating and showing them the effectiveness of it by doing it, right? Like walking the walk. And if that didn't work, if they, weren't quote unquote uncoachable, maybe there was a better place for them to operate in that checkbox type of security. And I don't know if that would be, what type of organization that would be, potentially financial, financially focused, but
those, financial, there's a lot of opportunity in fintech and security these days,
and a lot of compliance, which
so much compliance, so much regulation, so much compliance. What a joy. But what do you think are some of the things that led you to this place that you've landed before you landed there?
I was an athlete. And so from a very young age, I played volleyball. I played at the collegiate level. And I think that in some way made me who I am today, in that I am a team player. And it was funny because there are some people that would be highly competitive even in practice. And my coach would sometimes say, like, Sarah, why aren't you, trying to compete against this person? My response was, because it's my teammate, right? Like I want to help support and lift up the team as a whole. It's not about me. And so that, I feel like that's just sort of like my DNA. And when I shifted into the security organization at Target, obviously there are people in the security organization, and we ruffle a lot of feathers, right? Like sometimes we kind of have to say no, and that's a really difficult space to be in. And so I would be the person that the leadership team would reach out to like go talk to this person and like mend the relationship. So I was like the like cleanup crew on relationships across the business units, and I love being able to do that. Just to even spend 5 minutes trying to nurture the relationship and shift the viewpoint for why we have to do what we have to do. And so I feel like that has kind of made me, again, who I am today, and has allowed me to be very effective, to be invited into staff meetings and to come speak to leadership teams, as well as we have our big CHS annual meeting, and I'll be co-presenting on cybersecurity, because again, I want to sort of have I want to invite the team in to present to our farmer owners around how they can better secure their identity at home, how they can help secure their family when they're on the road, some just basic tips and tricks. Again, a very highly complex topic area. And so, I think a lot of that has made me effective in leading the helm of security and productivity. Obviously, we've got a brand that we need to uphold, maintain better, depending on your viewpoint. So I'm always rallied to that cause, and really expect my team to be rallied to that cause of being the best in customer service.
Tell me about, so you mentioned doing presentations, talking with not only the organization about how to keep security at the forefront of their mind, but with people individually. Can you tell me about a time when you've had to manage up, meaning when you've had to talk to a senior leader or an executive about the importance of security